Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday and we are continuing our division previews with the West. We are starting with the NFC West today, and that means the top of the division, the San Francisco 49ers, which you might have guessed by the background and apparel of my co-host today, Mr. John Hamlers. And we'll also be talking about the Rams, but it is an all California, mostly Northern California, I sense over there. You are a big-time 49ers fan. How did you first fall in love with the 49ers?
Well, they were good.
That always helps.
Yeah.
That's why millions of Americans follow the Cowboys, right?
Right. So I was 10 or 11, dual household child. And I was mostly with my mom and never really got into sports at all as a little kid. Moved in with my dad. He was super huge on baseball. And I just fell in love with sports almost immediately when I found out that, 85% of them are more fun than baseball. So I picked all my teams based on who was good. I'm a Braves fan,
So I'm a Braves fan too. I grew up in California, but when the Braves were owned by Turner, every one of their games was on at 4 p.m. California time when I was in middle and high school. I used to do my homework and watch, and that's how you got to know the Braves. I couldn't stay up till midnight to watch freaking Dodgers.
No. And, I would be staying up late, but, at 11 and 12, like, is there really a too late? Like, oh, I got 2 hours of sleep last night. I'm just going to be a cranky 12-year-old.
Well, that's true. But as you get older, last night I was out late because we had our screening for Deadpool and Wolverine. And I get up at like 5 for work every day. I didn't get home until after 10.
Yeah.
Last night, which I know college me would slap me in the face if I said 10 was late. But I was so tired this morning, I left my cup of water. I was halfway up the mountain to my remote site today. I was like, that's right. I left my cup. I had my coffee. I left my water.
Yeah.
What a day.
Yeah, no, I get it. If I stay up to watch a UFC fight anymore, it's like, don't expect anything from me until 2 the next day at the earliest. Like,
well, you're here because we've been talking and writing about fantasy football for quite a while. You and me and Dennis all did the Fantasy Life app blog, columns and stuff. And we also been playing in leagues. I think you and I have been in leagues for feels like almost a decade.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast time flies. But I think because I want to say I got into the first roundtable league. I think that was the first one that we were in together when I first started going for the no, back then it was Fantasy Life League. But yeah, I think I got with the flap on probably 10, maybe more.
It's hard to believe. Like, the Fantasy Life app brought so many people together. I kind of do miss when it first started, like all things on the internet, there was just some delightful community, and then like all things on the internet, there
Yep.
becomes delightful trolls. But how did you first you kind of talked a little bit about how you got into the 49ers and sports in general, but how did you first find fantasy football?
I'm a numbers guy. It's gross, but I love math. It really makes my daughter sick when I'm helping her with her math homework. How do you like this? And
Some
my
people like
dad,
for too. I mean,
yeah, my dad got me into fantasy baseball, and then once I got hooked on football, it was an easy transition. I remember that the first league I ran, I want to say that I was 15, 16 years old, and to put an age on me there, we're looking at
you were still
I
hands.
was I was USA Today box scores.
I know.
I'd
I
have
mean, I think USA Today must have lost like 95% of its readership when people started getting stats online.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I would buy the Monday and the Tuesday edition, and
I used to remember too, like early days of fantasy, you couldn't wait till June or July when the glossy magazine would show up
yeah,
that had the stats and had the rankings so you could prep for your drafts.
yeah, they still have those. I'm in a league. I actually just joined a league. I've been their auctioneer for probably 7 or 8 years. They had a spot open up, so I jumped in. Probably 7 of these guys have the little guides and 15 papers and some of them have multiple books. I'm like, what? And then there's the guy sitting there with his tablet stood up with more information right in front of him. So
When I used to run my league for my office, I used to go and print them cheat sheets off of a few different sites so that they could track so people could track ADPs. I'd leave it. It's almost like prepping for a room about to take the SATs. I'd lay out a pencil and a stack of cheat sheets for them.
yes.
Well, you are here to join me today to talk about the first half of the NFC West because teams that you love, and also our friend Dennis continues to forsake the NFL for the other kind of football as he's working the MLS All-Star Game in Columbus as a driver. He should be back at the end of the week. He and I will be going live on Thursday to do the rest of the NFC West one day earlier. But before we dive into the West teams, training camp getting underway. It's always a little bit of interest in who shows up, who doesn't show up, and who shows up but says that they won't participate, which is certainly the case in Green Bay with Jordan Love. The Packers president made a statement where he indicated that Jordan Love's agent had let them know until he gets a new deal, he is present at training camp, he's attending meetings, but he won't practice or play in any games. We mentioned USA Today. If you track them at all, they always do their fearless predictions. They predicted a Jets over Packers Super Bowl, which is a thing that has happened to all of us. I'm not sure they remember it's 2024 Aaron Rodgers, not 2015 Aaron Rodgers, but we'll let that go. But for the Packers, Jordan Love has no competition. They certainly aren't real excited to roll into a season with Sean Clifford and or Michael Pratt as their only quarterbacks. Love is a veteran. He played real well last year, but he only really has 1 year of starting experience. It seems like from reports that he's looking for, the standard contracts that quarterbacks are getting now in north of $50 million a year. If you're rostering Jordan Love or any of your Packers, are you at all concerned by this hold-in?
No. Love is going to be their franchise quarterback, whether it works out, whether he plays like he did last year or he goes, and stinks up the place. They've invested too much in him right now and built around him. Even if Sean Clifford came in, they're still going to win enough games. They've got a good enough team. Not as good as USA Today thinks, but they've got a good enough team that they're not going to get a top 5 draft pick. They're not going to have their choice of quarterbacks. So do you rather go with I hate to do this, but Bo Nix or a Drake May, where there's every bit the number of question marks going in as Jordan Love had. Jordan Love had time to learn behind one of the weirdest quarterbacks who absolutely was great. Love to hear some of those stories, but it just doesn't make sense. They're gonna alienate some of their fan base, and just pay the guy. The salary cap's gonna go up year over year, tremendous amounts of money, especially now with the way the economy is. So let's just do it.
I do get the argument, though. That was one of the things about the Trevor Lawrence deal that gave me pause, because I'm sure if I'm Jordan Love's agent, I am pointing to like that deal where he became one of the highest paid quarterbacks. And I get that he was a number 1 overall pick, and we thought, some people thought he was going to be like a generational talent that was going to have it. I think now heading into year 4, we're pretty well settled that he's a high-end QB2. Love probably is somewhere in that 10 to 15 range based on what we saw last year if they continue. But he has only really 1 year of starting experience, and it is still a very young team. The only thing I would be concerned about is you already still have a young team, not a lot of experience in receivers and tight ends. You're missing key opportunities to work with them. They have a completely new backfield. I mean, I know A.J. Dillon's there and in the best shape of his life, but they did not sign Josh Jacobs and draft Marshawn Lloyd to trot out A.J. Dillon for 2.9 yards per carry again. So you're kind of missing that. They have changed some people on the offensive line. Supposedly they're close to a deal. If they get it settled, in the next couple of weeks before we play any actual games, okay. But if this starts to linger and you're talking about into August or rolling into the regular season with, they were a team, they were not great to start the season. They really had good momentum to end the season, and then they built that momentum in the playoffs. But one of the key catalysts, I personally thought, down the stretch and in those playoff games is Aaron Jones, who's gone, who would have been the voice of experience not only in the team but in the system. Josh Jacobs is a veteran, but he's never been there.
Mm-mm.
So
nope. And I mean, the Packers forget. So, well, I guess USA Today forgets something. The 49ers won't let the Packers go to the Super Bowl. Like, we didn't let Rodgers do it. There was 1 year that he did, and whatever, we were terrible. But recent memory serves, we've knocked the Packers out of the playoffs a lot.
Yeah, the Packers have not done well against the 49ers in the playoffs. Even with Rodgers,
yeah,
they did well, even when they were favored.
Right.
All right, well, let's dive into our previews, and we are doing the NFC West top 2 teams. First of those is the San Francisco 49ers. In 2023, they finished 12-5, first in the NFC West. They made it all the way to the Super Bowl, winning the NFC, and lost to the Chiefs. Second time they've lost to the Chiefs in, was it 4 years, 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those were both tough games for me. I'm sure they were tough games.
Oh, gosh. I mean, the first one wasn't like, it got so bad so fast. Like, I think we were winning, and then they like pick sixed us, and then turnover, immediate touchdown. Like, we were only winning by 1 or something, and they did a Chiefs thing and put 20 on the board within 4 minutes. So that one, I had to put my head down and not be seen in public for a little bit because it was embarrassing. This one, I think Greenlaw. I mean, our defense is going out. They've been playing great. And he tears his Achilles on his way out to the field with a pumped up defense. Everybody knows what happened. They go out there, they've got, it's to a significantly less extent. It took the same kind of hit on them that the Bills canceled their game for when DeMar Hamlin died. Obviously, miles apart, but how do you overcome that? Like they say, oh, just focus, man. That's your guy. You're going to war with that guy, and then the Chiefs throw to Nicole Hardman where Greenlaw is supposed to be. So,
well. So among their departures, Sam Darnold left, probably going to be the starter for the Vikings. Eric Armstead, the defensive end, left. Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle, left. Joseph Day, defensive tackle, left. Chase Young left. Randy Gregory not only left and went to the Buccaneers, but he's has an unexcused absence now, which I thought was so Randy Gregory. Among their additions. They brought in Josh Dobbs to be the backup quarterback. They signed Logan Thomas. I think that could be an underrated backup tight end signing. They got Leonard Floyd, a defensive tackle, and Isaac Yadam and Rock Yassin to add to the corners. In the draft, Ricky Pearsall was the top pick at wide receiver. They took Renardo Green later in the draft. They also grabbed running back Isaac Garendo and wide receiver Jacob Cowing. Fantasy finishes last year, Brock Purdy, quarterback 6. Pretty good in his first full season as the starter. Running back Christian McCaffrey was running back 1. Hard to do much better than that. Wide receivers, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 15. Missed a few games, still wide receiver 15. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 14. And George Kittle, tight end 5. Probably the biggest challenge for this offense right now is settling a contract, long-term future for Brandon Ayuk, who his agent publicly requested a trade. He is at training camp. The 49ers say they are fully intending on having him play for them this year. That was what GM John Lynch said today. They've seemingly taken that position since the draft. There were rumblings whether they were going to trade him leading up to the draft, during the draft. They obviously grabbed Ricky Pearsall for the future, but I think this is a team that was just in the Super Bowl, has Super Bowl aspirations. I just ticked off those fantasy finishes. If you can roll out with McCaffrey, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, I think you're going to do it. Any concerns from you as a fan about him this season, or how you think it's going to impact fantasy?
Well, something that a casual fan might not realize is that Brandon Ayuk created space for that RB1 season out of McCaffrey. Not to take anything away from McCaffrey, but when he hits that edge and Deebo and Brandon are laying knockdown blocks, they keep juice check for these blocks because everything is yards after contact. And not having a guy that's, top 10 in the league at run blocking like Brandon Ayuk could have an impact. Now, will it really? Kyle Shanahan, it feels like if he's got a stud in Deebo Samuel, he's got serviceable in Jawan Jennings. Like they got the new guys. Could we do fine without Brandon? Yes. But we went through this last year. Deebo's on the team. Deebo loves being on the team. Ayuk's doing the same thing. He's going to get paid. We're doing the same thing we did with Deebo. And I don't think there's going to be any different result. Ayuk's going to get paid. And if we do trade him, wow, we're trading a top-end wide receiver. What are we going to get out of that?
I think a bigger question, I don't think they're going to trade him this season. I think a bigger question for me is whether they end up having to tag him next season. Or, you can play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You can do what the Giants did with Saquon this year, and which we're watching play out on Hard Knocks in the most brutal fashion imaginable.
Yeah.
Where you have the Giants owner come in and tell the GM, if we lose him and he goes somewhere in the division, I'm not going to sit very well with that. And you're like, oh, I already know he's an Eagle. That sucks to be you. So there are part of me that wonders. I don't know if you watched the Netflix series Receiver. You probably are more cognizant because you follow the 49ers so closely, but I forgot how banged up Deebo Samuel got last year because he is one of the guys that they follow and how many times he got knocked out of games. And I kind of remember that from a couple of years ago too. I almost feel like I'd rather have Brandon Ayuk long term if I had to choose, but I know that's real polarizing for the fan base. But how do you feel about those guys?
Debo definitely has a skill set that Ayuk doesn't. I don't see Ayuk. I mean, he's a great blocker. He knows his positioning, where to get his hands, how to get in front to not get penalties, things like that. But I don't think you can line him up in the backfield, run a motion, and have him, blocking a defensive end while McCaffrey tries to take the edge. Debo can do that. He probably shouldn't. That's why he gets hurt a lot. But, that's one of the things that made the QB6 kind of misleading for Purdy. Like, he had 3 bad games all season. One against the Ravens, and then the 2 where Debo and Trent were out. So that shows the impact. I mean, honestly, I think the impact is more Trent Williams. He's all world. Yeah. But, having your 2 best, and last year, Debo was the best on the team, and having your top left tackle and your top receiver / running back out, it's going to make it tough. Brock was in the MVP talks until Lamar.
Yeah.
Until that Ravens game.
I was going to say, I think if they would have won that game against the Ravens, to me, though, this is an interesting. It always seems to favor quarterbacks, but if I was going to give it to a 49er, I would have done McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But that, that's never going to happen. So, but I see Purdy being ranked out of the top. He's not a QB1 in a lot of people's rankings. And it's like, if you've watched him play, better. He's a good football player in an amazing system. He's not an amazing quarterback, but he's a very good quarterback in an amazing system.
I feel pretty similar that they're going to have similar finishes to last year. I have McCaffrey top 3 running backs. It is hard to repeat as RB1, but we saw Eckler do it for a couple of years when he was in there. I think Ayuk is going to be out there wanting to play every week and be motivated. And I forgot how high both those guys finished last year. I have Ayuk right up there, like 14, 15 again this year. And you have this perception when you're playing fantasy that Kittle faded away at times, but still tight end 5. I think it's just we talked about this last year. There's such an embarrassment of riches that 2 or 3 of those guys are going to have great games every week, but it's almost impossible for all 4 of them to return what their year-end value is going to be every week.
How many plays do you run in an average game? 60, 70, 80, somewhere in there. Well, 25 of those plays at least are Christian McCaffrey. Just write those off. And he might get 30, 35,
And from a passing perspective, I mean, they only threw it 491 times. You don't see a ton of really successful teams sub 500, but they did run the ball 499 times too.
Yeah. We have an amazing defense. You listed off a bunch of guys. Armstead, Hurts, Kinlaw and Joseph and Chase Young and Randy Gregory. Half of those guys were mid-season or early season pickups. We trade for them, whatever. They weren't the guys they're not that core group of guys, except for Eric Armstead. Like I said, that one hurts. But we've still got an amazing defense. So yeah, run the ball 500 times a season. Like the defense will bail you out, Shanahan, and then you're gonna throw the Tom Brady offense out there, when he had James White and was it LeGarrette Blount?
Yeah.
I think where you've got the receiving and obviously Christian McCaffrey is both of those guys put together. That's what are you going to do to stop that? You can't enough. We're going to munch on the clock. We're going to stop you and walk away with the win.
So we pretty well know if you have Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, or Debo, you're keeping them and you're starting them. Let me ask you about a couple other. So Jawan Jennings, I've liked him in spurts when we've seen him in there. I forgot how few, he only had 33 targets and 19 receptions last year, but it feels like he comes up when you need a big play. He re-signed. Then you have Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall to me feels like the consummate. I want to have him in my dynasty team, but I'm planning that I'm probably not putting him in my lineup this year.
Yeah, no, he's not a starter. Juwan Jennings is definitely ahead of Pearsall. Pearsall would have to go out and do amazing things. Yeah, Jennings caught 18 balls last season, but I remember many of Jennings' catches because they were those big moments. Shanahan trusts him. So if Ayuk doesn't resign or doesn't play, Jennings is a drop-off, but he has the trust of his coach, and he can obviously perform in the offense when called on. So do I draft Pearsall? I've been fading Pearsall because in my opinion, everybody drafts rookies too early in like a startup draft.
Yeah.
In a dynasty, he's still going earlier than I want.
Well, I've noticed as we've gone through rookie draft season, I had rookie drafts immediately in May. I'm all the way through to I have one league. They don't want to do the rookie draft till like the end of August because they're trying to test my patience. But I have seen Pearsall. It seemed like he was going always in the first round right at the beginning, and now it seems like people have come back to earth a little bit more. But startups, you're right. People just hammer the.
Yeah, I stay off rookies. You can build an entire team. I mean, you saw this in the most recent one we did. I have a team of people that most of them are on their first contract still.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to overpay because they had that rookie tag attached to them. Go ahead, draft rookies that you don't know what's going to happen. I'll trade you my draft picks so that you can draft more. I'm going to take guys that I know are going to perform or know have a shot at it.
Well, it feels like I've done a couple of startups this offseason, including the one we did, and people hammer rookies so early. I sort of pivoted and went the other way and looked for veterans and veteran values, and I'll just try to win now.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, like I said, you can still get people on the first contract. You can get people on their contract year, things like that.
You can pick up these guys halfway through the season when the team has to drop them.
Exactly.
Play in their lineup.
Yeah. You can get these guys. If they didn't have the little R next to them, most of these guys wouldn't be on fantasy rosters. But who knows?
So 49ers last year, they were 12-5, won the division, won the NFC. How do you feel about them going into this year?
12-5 and win the Super Bowl. Beating the Taylor Swift Chiefs, which, don't get me wrong, totally a Swiftie. I'm not complaining about her being on TV. I love when people complain about her being on TV. But yeah, I think Kelsey's about to get married. If you listen to the because in order to be fully up on the Chiefs, you have to listen to the Taylor Swift underground rumors, and it sounds like they're going to get married before too long. It'll probably be, I can't. She would never do it during the season. Obviously, the consideration there. She's still got tour dates going on and all of this, but I wouldn't be surprised for her to, say in the off season, let's do this. And whatever happens, is going to throw Kelsey off his game a little bit. He actually broke the rule once last year where if Taylor Swift is at a game, he's out of his mind. So
I have the 49ers 12-5 also. I had them winning the West. I was just looking at how I played out my playoffs. I think they will be a strong contender back in the NFC Championship game. I picked a different NFC team, but we'll see. We'll see if I stick with that. I always do it several times through the off season, but the final is once you start seeing preseason and everything. I'm fairly confident the 49ers, unless all those people we mentioned break their legs in practice, should be
right.
But even then, their second line, Josh Dobbs won some games. Elijah Mitchell, we've seen actually be pretty decent. I guess we will be playing Pearsall and Cowing and
we retooled.
Is a starting tight end. They have him buying.
So that was another one I wanted to touch on. While Logan Thomas will always have a place in my heart from those football team days, I think Cameron Latu is next man up. He was on the IR all last season with an injury. His skill set is pretty great. If he wasn't hurt, he would have got snaps last year. And I think, maybe Thomas wouldn't have got picked up, but if you're looking for a
Ross Dwelly and Charlie Werner, I think. So that's they needed some more people.
They've experimented with Dwelly. Warner's a practice squad guy. He's not going to see the field catching footballs.
I think he actually signed with somebody else. That's what I was.
Yeah, I didn't get depth chart all the way typed in there because I
just kind of remember the name. That's what I'm going to look at the roster. I can't remember if he's one that re-signed with them or.
I mean, it's not. That's one of those.
So they're tight ends.
I can't remember. It's because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Kittle. Latau, they signed Eric Saubert, and Logan Thomas. Those are probably, to me, if they keep four, those would be the four. But Warner's gone and Dwelly's gone.
Yeah.
That's probably
they're not going to cut Logan
That's
Thomas.
More why they brought Logan Thomas in. Well, Logan Thomas, there were a lot of rumors he was going to retire.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah. And he's been banged up. I mean, he didn't get good until he was 34. He was just pedestrian until all of a sudden, when you're supposed to be in your decline, you have your breakout season, and then he's just been hurt since then. So, I think he'd be a good situational guy. He can obviously play football. He can go in the red zone and go get those balls. But we don't have, you said, Kittle was up and down, but into TE5. Kittle's been up and down for years. He'll have good games and he'll have off games. And the difference is, does he get passes thrown to him? There's only so many to go around. Purdy's thrown 22, 25 a game.
That's the thing.
And 7 of those are to McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's receiver roulette. You're always going to be able to play Christian McCaffrey, but it's only a couple of those receivers are actually going to hit. Some games it's only one, that has a big game, if they have multi-touchdown.
Yeah.
Well, let's
usually Debo that you notice.
Yeah.
I'd say it's Debo that you notice because he exploded, and then last season he wasn't as good as the season he was before, but he was banged up. But when Debo goes off, he gives you 27, 28 points, and when Ayuk goes off, he gives you 19 or 20. Like, eh.
Let's move on and talk about the other team that we have on previews today, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. 2023, they were 10-7, second in the NFC West. They made the playoffs, but lost in the wild card round to the Lions. Among their departures, Carson Wentz went to be quarterback for the Chiefs, and Aaron Donald, the all-world defender, retired. Among their additions, they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo to be the backup quarterback, but he will be suspended for the first few games of the season. They added Boston Scott to their running back room, Colby Parkinson from the Seahawks to their tight end room, and they signed Tre'Davious White at corner. In the draft, they hammered the defensive line, grabbing Jared Verse at defensive end, Braden Fisk at defensive tackle. They also grabbed an interesting running back prospect in Blake Corum. Last year, Matthew Stafford was QB 15. Kyron Williams burst onto the scene after being a fifth-round draft pick the year prior and finished as running back 7. Puka Nacua as a rookie, fifth-rounder, finished as wide receiver 4. Cooper Kupp missed quite a chunk of time with some injuries, still finished as wide receiver 40. And Tyler Higbee was tight end 24. I think when it comes to fantasy for the Rams, John, the two big questions are, will Blake Corum have a year one impact that diminishes Kyron Williams? And can Puka Nacua do it again?
It's funny that you say Cooper Nacua because that's kind of how it is out there. Like, they're throwing the ball. It's going to one of those guys. No, yeah. Blake Corum is going to have an impact on Kyron Williams' season. They are focusing on his pass blocking. Obviously, he didn't have to do that a whole lot at Michigan. He was too busy running people over, and
didn't have to do it.
They didn't.
Whole lot. They don't throw the ball at Michigan.
Yeah, if what was it in one of those games they didn't pass in the second half? I want to say. So, yeah. I think that he's going to come out. He's a hell of a runner. He's going to come out and, RB1, RB1B is what I see if he gets his pass blocking taken care of. And Kyron Williams, he's got a permanent Red Cross next to his name because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So, at some point in time, he's going to miss a game or two. Could he lose the RB1 status during that time? Yeah, Corum is that talented. Will he? Who knows? I don't know. But I'm drafting Corum everywhere I can get him.
They have the interesting thing, though, with trends for McVay with the Rams is usually that no matter the draft capital, rookie running backs don't usually get heavily involved early. It's something to do with the complexity of the playbook. And the other thing is that he's been pretty consistent about having a workhorse back that is his starter, which are the kind of things that would preclude me from thinking it's going to be much of a split. Now, Cam Akers was the last running back. They took Corum in the third. Cam Akers they had taken in the second. Toward the end of his rookie year, he did get a couple of games and emerge, and I think that's because Henderson got injured. And so that's where I think it could work out. I think Corum is an incredible dynasty stash. I'm not as sold that he's a huge contributor in year one, especially at the beginning. They actually kind of like Ronnie Rivers. So I would not be shocked if September is Kyron Williams and then a few relief carries for Ronnie Rivers. That's classic Sean McVay, especially against fantasy owners.
I think Corum might be good enough to push that. Especially do they really want to put Kyron out there for 350 touches? Do they want him to bell cow? Like I said, he's hurt all the time. Do they want to take some of that wear and tear off? Does he shift his strategy for that? after seeing what happened to Cam Akers. Um, it just, I mean, McVay's tough to read on that, but if anything happens to Kyron, especially like you said in the second half of the season, like get Blake Corum, do what you have to do.
So Kyron did not miss time, I think, as much as we sometimes perceive. He was bell cow all the way through week 6, had an injury where he missed 4 games in a row, but they happened to be kind of in the brutal stretch of the fantasy season, which is probably why we remember it so much. And then when he came back for weeks 12 through 18, nobody for the Rams played in week 18 because they were out of it. 12 through 17, he was back. Normal touches, incredible workload, incredible production. So he didn't miss. He did miss a chunk of games, but it was from one injury.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he was banged up in some of those other games. Like, did he perform well? Yeah, I'm not saying anything about the talent of the guy. He's super talented. I know Blake Corum is too, and I feel like, you know, they got Blake Corum, one of the top rated running backs, you know, on everybody's draft board. They went out and got him for a reason. You know, you don't spend a third on a QB or on a running back unless you plan to play him. I could absolutely say not this year, maybe next year, but I really do see by the end of the season him getting work.
I still haven't given up hope that Zach Evans is going to find a way to get involved.
Oh gosh, if that happened, I'd be golden because I have him in like 10 leagues.
Well, that's what happened for me with Kyron Williams. He was like the ultimate 3rd and 4th round pick the year he went, and he was on my taxis. In fact, I forgot how many teams I had him until like the first week of the regular season. I was like, oh, hell yes, he's on my taxi. I am elevating him right now.
I did that with Puka last year. Like I drafted him in a few spots, and you know
that's how with orphans you can always tell like the owner lost interest and abandoned their team like the September prior, because you look at their current taxi squad and it's like Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams are still on there, and you're like, yep, you didn't watch any actual games because your team sucked and you would have elevated them.
Exactly. I did leave Puka on a taxi squad all year last year though.
Well, if you're winning, or if
tanking.
if you're intentionally trying not to win, yeah.
Full tank mode.
So do you?
I never took them off. Like it wasn't like I left my taxi guys on from week 1 of the preseason all the way through. So it was my stated goal. Obviously, I didn't think he was going to go anywhere, but yeah.
So Puka Nacua obviously had an incredible rookie season, and he did it from week 1. I mean, he saw 15 targets in week 1. It helped probably him a little bit that Kupp missed a spate of games and was limited to 12, but he saw 160 targets. He actually saw 35 targets in his first 2 weeks. Seems like they like him. Seems like a good fit for this offense. Do you have faith in 2024, or are you hedging?
I don't see that volume coming back. But I do see close, you know, maybe 130, 140. And then people know who he is now. You know, the first 3 weeks of the last season, I think we saw clips online like, who the hell is this guy? Like the opposing coaches, like, why is this guy destroying us? Nobody, you know, the game plan is going to be geared to stop him a little bit more. So I do see a downturn, but I still, you know, he's going to have the opportunity for a wide receiver 1 season for sure.
Yeah, we did see start impacting a little bit more down the stretch, but it looks like he only had a single game where he saw fewer than 7 targets, and that was 6 targets. He did not, and that was in week 17. And I think that's because he broke the record and they pulled him out. If I recall, that was in week 18. Sorry, I believe it. Once he had, I think I remember seeing the clips of Sean McVay. Oh, he's got it. Good. Get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
So he was remarkably consistent. But I'm like you. I don't know if the top 5 could be a little bit crowded, and I like some other players a little bit better, but I still have him as a wide receiver 1, and I still think he's the one that I want of the pair. Not that I think Cooper Kupp will be better, but the Rams, I feel like their pass offense is those two guys, and every 5th game Tyler Higbee reminds you he lives, and then every once in a while you'll have like a Demarcus Robinson or Tutu Atwell go off, and you'll be like, I hate you, Sean McVay.
Yeah. What was that guy's name? Ben Skowronek. Like, remember when he was a
you don't
thing
have to
for
worry
2
about
weeks?
him anymore because he went to the Texans. Now he's the one that's going to catch the touchdown, and while Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs are looking around like, what the hell happened to us?
Yes. Yeah. The Van Jefferson, the Josh Reynolds, like, they always find a guy to fill that role, and he's going to have one big week. It's going to take the attention away a little bit, and, but it's, that's just a thing that happens. Hope you catch him on, hope you catch that on the bye week that you use him. But Puka, wide receiver 1, definitely. I think Kupp probably falls to a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, that's right.
And if Stafford could rush for 200 yards this season, I have him as a QB1. Stafford's still an amazing quarterback. He's been like, I was watching a video, and it was showing all of those fancy plays that Mahomes runs, the no looks and the
21
flips.
carries for 65 yards last year. So I don't think.
No, he's not going to get it. He's not going to get it. He's not a rushing quarterback. Never really has been. But Stafford was doing all of these tricks. Like, Mahomes may have learned his tricks from Stafford, and Stafford is still doing them to this day. You need somebody to throw no look? Yeah. You need somebody to, he broke out of the pocket like he was going to throw left and switched to right like Lamar did. Like, these moves, people don't give Stafford the respect that he deserves. He's got his Super Bowl now, maybe Hall of Fame.
Well, and the Rams just redid his deal to give him a little more guaranteed money. I think that's a promising sign. They don't really have a quarterback in the wings there. The Rams have been a team the last couple of years I thought might try to take that developmental guy. Same way I thought the Jets were going to get a developmental guy this year, but instead, surprise, it was the Falcons. So, but the Rams 10-7 last year made a strong resurgence. I still like their offense. Their defense probably, they got some good pieces, but I think replacing Aaron Donald is probably going to be,
you can't replace Aaron Donald.
NFC's not as stacked as the AFC. I still have the Rams winning 9-10 games, being in the wild card hunt. How are you feeling about the Rams?
I'd say 10 is a little much. I mean, just the impact of Donald leaving. He was obviously the leader of the defense, and just an out of this world guy. Like, you had to throw 3 guys at him. But I could see maybe 9-8, 8-9. The equivalent, the 2024 equivalent of the Jeff Fisher 500 season.
And in the NFC, that might be good enough to get in on wild cards. It's going to be interesting. AFC, I think it's going to be 10-11 wins to get in, but the NFC, I think feels like another year where you'll have the like 2 or 3 teams at the top, and then kind of a real soft middle.
Yeah, I think that I think that it's going to depend a lot on how the Cardinals are. And obviously we're not going over the Cardinals today, but I think the Cardinals can make a jump. Kyler Murray healthy for the whole year. He's better than everybody gives him credit for. Marvin Harrison, if he is 90%, 80% as good as he was in college in the NFL, he's going to be their number one receiver. They've got guys all over the place. They've got a running game that they can use, multiple running backs that are good. If they are able to, that's where the 2-game difference is basically. If the Cardinals split with them, I see the Rams being 9-8. If the Rams beat them both, yeah, they could be 10-7. I think that's really the pivotal matchup.
Interdivisional.
Yeah, that's the one that's going to decide who is right behind us.
Well, and even when the Rams were winning the division, they struggled against Seattle. It just feels like some of these division matchups don't always go how you're expecting.
Oh, yeah, Seattle plays us tough. They always have. I mean, I used to hate Richard Sherman. And then I loved him, but now
he's gone, so you can go back to hating him.
No, I like him as a sports entertainer, as it were.
It's always hard when players that you loathe with the fire of 1,000 suns become integral to your favorite team, because they're just it's like having your entire worldview turned on its axle.
Like if Turtle would have got his wish and Brady would have came to the Giants or the Jets. Yeah, Turtle was a Jets fan. Yeah, it's like that. Are you going to change your alliance? Absolutely. 100%. That's my guy.
I do prefer a player I hate coming to a team that I love a lot more than a player I love from my team going to a team that I hate.
Yeah, because then it feels like a betrayal.
Yeah.
When you're on that end of it, it's like, dude, why is Saquon still in the division?
It's like I still remember the internet was still wasn't quite like it is now, but when the decision came out with LeBron, reading and seeing some of those interviews, I remember the guy in Cleveland burning his jersey saying, I could come home and see my wife in a gangbang right now and I wouldn't be as hurt as I am by LeBron going to Miami. And I was like, you might need to refocus your priorities, friend, because I tell you what, I think one of those things would be more painful than the other. And it is not the guy you've never met leaving your team and going to a team you don't care for.
Yeah. Especially because he just went away so that they could get a top draft pick and come back. It went, super team, and then, they've got a top draft pick. I'm going to come back now. But anyway, LeBron actually did go to my favorite team, and I still hate him. I was a Lakers guy. Kobe. Kobe's probably my second favorite basketball player of all time, behind Penny Hardaway, and then Michael Jordan, obviously. But just the way LeBron plays the game, man, it's not. They say, forget about the 90s. Like, I've seen those great.
You may not want to tune into the Olympics on Friday because he was chosen to be our flag bearer.
Well, yeah, he's the most famous. Everybody's going to know who he is.
They've never chosen, they said, a men's basketball player before.
Yeah. Well, Jordan didn't want to do it. Kobe didn't want to do it.
I bet Kobe would have done it. It's hard to imagine Michael Jordan doing it. Be like, do you want to walk with a flag? No, dog.
Nah, no. Oh, wait. This says Reebok. Hold on. Just a flag over it. That would be great.
I am excited. The season is nearly upon us. Thank you so much for being here, talking 49ers and Rams today. We will be back. Dennis and I will be back on Thursday to talk Seahawks and Cardinals. Still some good fantasy assets. The entirety of the NFC West has some good fantasy assets. So that's good because next week we'll be talking about the AFC West, and at least one of those teams has fantasy assets you want. But in the NFC West, all four are pretty good. John, thanks so much. Look forward to battling you. I'm sure in as many leagues we're in together, we will be playing each other at least once every week this season. So
Probably. I could absolutely see that.
Until Thursday, you guys take it easy and have a wonderful week.
Hey, thanks for having me.